So today's session is guidance for collaborating with Department of Labor Office of Apprenticeship. So I want to thank you all for joining today. Before we dive into the presentation, just want to go over some housekeeping notes to ensure that we have a positive experience for all attendees. First, note that this webinar will be recorded and posted on the Apprenticeship Illinois website later this week. We encourage you to stay on mute to minimize distractions during the presentation. If you do think of any questions during the presentation, feel free to enter them into the chat or the Q&A feature, and we'll do our best to address those questions at the end of the webinar as time allows. Lastly, we will be sending a survey that will open up directly after the end of this session, and greatly appreciate any feedback you have to improve the future webinars in this series, and let us know if this content was helpful to your work. So thanks for your attention, and we'll go ahead and get started with the introduction to our presenter, Nakeya. So Nakeya has been with the Department of Labor and Office of Apprenticeship since 2021 as an apprenticeship and training representative. Since being with the Department of Labor and Office of Apprenticeship, Nakeya has helped business, colleges, vocational schools, high schools, and other community partners develop registered apprenticeship programs. She has also helped over 100 registered apprenticeship programs revise their paperwork to better fit their organization's needs. Nakeya has been in the training and development industry for over 20 years. Her work spans from industries such as U.S. government, higher education, and non-for-profit and for-profit organizations. Her contact information is also on this slide. So if you want to get in touch later, we also have that information available for you as well. And then with that, just to get an idea of kind of who's here in this session, I'm going to quick launch a poll and see where people are coming from. And once we get a good amount of the participants selecting that, I'll go ahead and share it. All right, looks like responses are coming in. So out of the results, this is kind of who we're seeing. About half of everyone shows where they're coming from. So a lot of people from Chicago, Northern Illinois, and then kind of a range across the state, mostly Title I and other WEO partners.
We're both listening.
And with that, Nakeya, we can go ahead and go to the next slide.
Okay.
Let me stop sharing. So, and then I think it's, yep, just a quick reminder is about Apprenticeship Illinois and the role of the apprenticeship or regional specialists. So the regional specialists conduct in-person and virtual apprenticeship outreach through events and employer consultations. So they help receive and pursue referrals that were sent to the Apprenticeship Illinois website. And they also work with employers to develop and register their apprenticeship programs from start to finish, and also connect employers to any intermediary partners and other services that will help kind of facilitate that whole hands-on process and making sure that the employer has a positive experience. With that, I will turn it over to our expert, Nakeya, with this presentation she's prepared.
Oh, thank you, Jordan, so much for that wonderful introduction. Hello, everybody, and welcome. And thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we're going to talk about some things that's reaching out to your ATR, eligibility concerning your registered apprenticeship programs, standards builder of the approval process, and some most common mistakes. And we'll also, which is on here, is we'll have a Q&A at the very end. So let's talk about in the beginning, day one. Day one, when you are thinking about registering an apprenticeship program or working with a potential sponsor or even helping a sponsor revise their program, you want to make sure that we have the occupation registered here at the Department of Labor. Not only that, you want to make sure that your sponsor understands that occupation and make sure that that occupation is when it's going to fit their organization's needs that they have. So once your sponsor or potential sponsor has that occupation, one of the things I also want to mention is when you go on to our websites, or if you reach out to the ATR, you also want to make sure that that ONET code is correct, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So when you pick your occupation, you want to make sure that you can meet the on-the-job hours of that occupation. You want to partner or meet, if you're going to have training in-house, the related training hours for that occupation. Some of the things you want to keep in mind with that occupation is whether or not it's going to be time-based, hybrid, or competency-based. We'll go into that a little bit more in depth at the end, but time-based is just that. It's the time in one particular learning skill before moving on or even completing a program. Competency is they can test out, they can show their mentor that they are competent in that particular skill set on the job, and hybrid is both combined. Another thing you want to keep in mind is this occupation registered with the Department of Labor? As some of you have already worked with us and who have been on our website, you will understand that some of the occupations that are on our website, I know it's a pet peeve of mine, and if you worked with me before, you've heard me say this, that some of the occupations on our website are not registered with the Department of Labor. However, we have all occupations that are on the ONET website on our website as well. How you can determine, and I can, if you need me to show you later on our website, which occupations are indeed registered. And those are the ones that have a star next to it, and it will say whether or not it is or isn't registered with the Department of Labor. A common misconception is hairdresser. And even I've made this mistake as an early ATR, is hairdresser, even though it is a registered occupation, we have found out that it is a very difficult occupation to indeed have a successful registered apprenticeship program. And despite it being one of our registered occupations, here in Illinois, we do not register hairdresser. And why is that? Hairdresser is because of the wage schedule. The wage is usually based off of commission, tips. It really doesn't fit our model very well. So we've realized that hairdresser, along with other occupations that are based off of commission, is not suitable for a registered occupation here with the Department of Labor for a registered apprenticeship program. All right, Standards Builder. If you are not familiar with Standards Builder, I will be giving the demonstration of Standards Builder at the end of this presentation. Standards Builder is where I ask everyone to go to start a new program. All new programs are on Standards Builder. Standards Builder can be found on our website. And if you've seen me present, you've seen me say this 100 times. What's your favorite website? www.apprenticeship.gov. Write it down, www.apprenticeship.gov. You will find there how to enter into Standards Builder to start the paperwork for your registered apprenticeship program. Now, for the state of Illinois, we would like for you to fill out Appendix A. You can get an Appendix A from your navigator or your ATR who works in your region. We will give you the template. And the reason why I'm talking about the template is because here in the state of Illinois, we would like for the template to be filled out and uploaded into Standards Builder. And I can demonstrate that for you at the end of this presentation. What is Appendix A? Appendix A is the blueprint of your training program. Many of you, as I've seen who have come into this presentation, I've worked with and are well aware of a proper Appendix A. Some of you, however, may not have seen how an Appendix A is built and what it consists of. Some of the things that Appendix A consists of is the term of the program, which is the length, the ratio. how many apprentices to journeymen? Right now, with the state of Illinois, it is only 1 to 1, unless you are given specific the green light from the Department of Labor to have more than one apprentice to journey worker. And oftentimes that is in an IT occupation where safety risks are rather minimal. In the Appendix A, you will have the probationary period. Many of us who have held a job know what a probationary period is. It's either 90 days, 30 days to see if it's a good fit between the organization and the apprentice. The wage schedule. The wage schedule is an increasing wage schedule, and you will see in my demonstration of the Appendix A what a proper wage schedule looks like. The selection procedures. How is the apprentice chosen once an application is put in? We like a detailed explanation of how you come to that conclusion on how you selected from your applicant pool. Oftentimes, we have in Appendix A a very general selection procedure, but you are more than welcome to become as detailed as possible. On the job learning outline, what we call also the work process schedule. I can also show you on your favorite website, www.apprenticeship.gov, your on-the-job learning outline, which is our work process schedule. It gives you a detailed outline of what skills that particular occupation needs to become a journeyman. I want you to also keep in mind that you can alter this work process schedule to fit the organization's needs. It can be tailored. Some limitations to that. And the related training outline. The related training outline is the coursework. If you have worked with a registered apprenticeship program, you do understand that our registered apprenticeship programs here in the state of Illinois requires coursework along with the on-the-job learning. So related training, think of the classroom, and that is in Appendix A. And Appendix A outlines the blueprint of your program. The standards, and I can show you an example of the standards. The standards are exactly just that. What are the standards for a registered apprenticeship occupation? Our standards go into detail of what our regulations state in our 29 CFR 29 and our 29 CFR 30. These things include, but are not limited to, minimum requirements. Minimum requirements are different from selection procedures. How so, you say? I'm glad you asked. What is the minimum requirement for someone, let's just say myself, who is looking for a job? The minimum requirements are just to apply. Do I meet the right age requirements? Some of you may have a youth apprenticeship program. 16, we do that. We do have registered apprenticeship programs where the apprentice can be as young as 16 years old. So in the standards, it must state what age the apprentice must be to be in your program. We also ask when wages will be paid. Can they be paid on when they're RTI, which is related training instruction, which is also their coursework when they're in school? Some employers do give a stipend to their apprentices while they're taking their classes. We would like that to be outlined in those standards. Also in our standards is our EEO, which is equal employment opportunity, what our regulations are around that, and our affirmative action requirements. And if so, if you would like, during Q&A, if you would like me to go into more details about our affirmative action plans, I can do that as well. Also, in our standards, we also want to know who is our person for complaints and how are those complaints handled. Those are just a few things that are in our standards. So once you have finished completing your Appendix A, and once you have finished completing the contract, which the employer signs, it is then submitted to your ATR in your region. Your ATR will go over that Appendix A and the standards that you have built in Standards Builder. Then it will be given to our state director, Deborah Crimmins-Reisinger. I love Deb, me personally. Those of you who know Deb, she's very passionate about apprenticeship here in Illinois, and she's a great individual to work for. I want you all to understand that we also have what we call group programs. So what are group programs? A lot of you on here, I believe, are intermediaries, and you are very familiar what a group program is, which means you have multiple employers, not just one, in your registered apprenticeship program. An intermediary is the organization who is taking full responsibility of running the apprenticeship program. However, they reach out into their community and tell employers, we have a registered apprenticeship program with its particular occupations. If the employer says, well, those occupations really don't fit our needs, then the intermediary will then reach out to the Department of Labor to fit those organizations' needs as well, and registering an occupation so that that employer can indeed come on board underneath them using what we call an Appendix D. An Appendix D is what an employer signs to join an already existing program. The Appendix D sets forth stating that I, employer ABC Acme, will indeed follow such and such apprenticeship program. Okay. And if you have questions, please let me know at the end. In addition to having a local program, companies are also have the ability to have a national program. So why do some companies choose to have a national program? Well, it just makes sense to them. It started off when I first began here as an ATR that a lot of programs, I'm just going to be very transparent. Those of you who have worked with me knows I'm very transparent, that national programs were supposed to be recognized throughout the nation. Once you become a registered apprenticeship program nationally under our national guideline standards, well, every state within the United States was supposed to recognize you. However, that is not the case. And I want to talk about that for just a little bit. When you have a national program that has been registered with the Office of an Apprenticeship, or OA, that particular program is only recognized in an OA state. We here in the United States, underneath the Department of Labor, Office of Apprenticeship also regulates SAA states, state apprenticeship agencies. State apprenticeship agencies have decided to have their own regulations. So they have their own guidelines that they follow. They do not follow OA. Do we work with them? Absolutely. Do they try to be as close to our regulations as possible? Yes, they do. They're great partners to work with here in the United States when advancing apprenticeship. However, if you know of a sponsor or you are a sponsor who has a national program, and you've probably already realized this when you go to a SAA state, you have to register your program underneath their regulations in that state. And I just wanted to make that clear before I moved on. So national programs here at the Department of Labor that are recognized by OA states, we ask that you do create an Appendix A standards, but also here are some additional steps when having a national apprenticeship program. We want to know that this particular organization does indeed have other offices in other states. And not only do you have other offices, but it's functional. It has employees, it has journeymen, it has the resources to sustain a registered apprenticeship program. We also ask that you have already been a registered apprenticeship program for 1 year. So in this new employer fact sheet, you will outline, and then I can show you what that looks like as well. A brief description of why the program qualifies as a national program under our criteria. And your ATR will be more than happy to assist you with that sheet. Once this new employer fact sheet is done, it will be submitted along with the Appendix A and the standards to be reviewed by Deborah, our wonderful state director here in Illinois. Once Deborah has given the green light on the program's documents, the Appendix A, the standards, and the new employer fact sheet, she will then send it up our chain of command She will then send it to our regional director, Dean Guido, which many of you have already heard or probably even worked with, and then to our deputy administrator, Michael Coulter. Both are absolutely wonderful men to work with here with the Department of Labor. Once they have reviewed the package through its fullest, they will then issue out a sponsor approval letter. The sponsor approval letter will be also submitted in the package, which will then reach its final destination of our Office of Apprenticeship Administrator, John Ladd. John Ladd will give the final say-so in this national apprenticeship program, giving them the green light to operate under our DOL, Office of Apprenticeship, regulations throughout our OA states. If you have any questions regarding a national apprenticeship program and these qualifications, please ask at the end of this presentation. Once approved, all programs are then notified to the ATR. The ATR will then reach out to either the navigator or the sponsor to let them know. If they have been working with the navigator, they will let the navigator know. And we'll talk about some best practices at the end. What are some best practices to work with your ATR? You want to keep in mind that in the beginning, and I should have said this before, is if you are a navigator working with your ATR, which my navigators are absolutely wonderful. They really set the bar high. I call them my Sarahs. I hope they're here today so I can give a shout out to them. But they are always in communication with me, even from the very beginning, even if they're even thinking about working with an employer, to let me know what's coming down the pipeline. And they always reach out for questions, which you should do with your ATR. Always, always, always keep those lines of communication open and ask questions. That's what we're here for. So once your program is approved, your ATR will notify the navigator, and the navigator will then reach out to the employer. If the employer has been working with the ATR, then the ATR will reach out to the sponsor directly to let them know the good news. Once they have been approved by all parties involved, the ATR will schedule a RAPIDS training. Don't ask me what RAPIDS stand for. I think it's Registered Apprenticeship Program Interaction Database System. I bet somebody out there knows what exactly what RAPIDS stand for. And if you've worked with me, you all hear me say RAPIDS is not so rapid, but it's a wonderful system to work with once you understand it. And your ATR is there to help you do that, to understand RAPIDS and how RAPIDS is there to help you. You will get training once you become approved. You'll get training on our regulations. You'll get training on our compliance reviews. That way, you, the sponsor, are set up for success, and you have constant support throughout your registered apprenticeship program. You're off to a good start with your ATRs here in Illinois. Affirmative action plan training is also included. Don't be afraid of affirmative action plans. We have what we call a DAT, a system that really just gathers all your data information for you, calculates it, and lets you know where you're starting from. Your ATR and other community organizations are here to help you reach any of your action plans or strategies to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion within your organization. We're here to help. The sponsors are then given access to RAPIDS, and they're issued their DOL registered certification, which they have worked hard for and earned it. Okay, so let's talk about some of the most common mistakes when we're starting this process. And it is that upload Appendix A. If you don't know, you don't know, and that is okay. Your ATR is here to help. If you do start in Standards Builder and you haven't uploaded that Appendix A, your ATR is going to either take what you put into Standards Builder and just fill out the appendix, send it to the navigator, send it to the employer to look over before they upload it into Standards Builder. Because as I said before, the Appendix A auto-populates the information into Standards Builder. So one of the most common mistakes I see is that the Appendix A is not uploaded, but you don't know what you don't know, and that's okay. So make sure that the ONET code is the proper ONET code. There are a lot of ONET codes, and if you've been in RAPIDS or on your favorite website, www.apprenticeship.gov, you can see that there are multiple occupations that have the same title. So make sure that you're paying very close attention to that occupation and to the ONET code, making sure that this is indeed the occupation that will fit your training needs. Make sure those on the job or OJT learning hours are added up correctly. We are all human. Have I made this mistake? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why it's on there. Make sure those OJT hours are added up correctly. We don't want to waste no time going back and forth with adding up those numbers. That goes for the art, which is the coursework. Those hours need to be added up correctly as well. Another common mistake is a lot of employers, when I first started, were under the impression that the minimum requirements for all occupations were 2,000 hours, and that is not the case. You can alter an occupation up to 25%. So what does that mean? Just to give you an example, if a program has an 8,000 hours RTI occupation, we can take 2,000 hours off. That's 25% of the OJT. Also, not only the OJT hours, but the skills. If you are creating a whole new occupation, that's a lot more than 25%. So just keep that in mind. I see that mistake as well. Another mistake that I've seen, and this is for the state of Illinois, that we ask that you add safety to both RTI and OJL at the top of your appendix. So what does that look like? I always use OSHA as an example because OSHA, you have the coursework training, the OSHA 10s, the OSHA 30s, where you get your certification, but you're also using that training on the floor with your mentors. So your OJT should have safety at the very top and RTI at the very top. And you'll also see that we ask for PPE language. I will give an example of that as well. A lot of appendixes do not come when they're finished, when they get submitted, do not have PPE language. This is something new. Don't freak out. If you didn't have PPE language in the past, it's perfectly all right. But that's what your ATR is here for. We're here to assist. We do ask that PPE is included in your Appendix A. So this is something new, so do not freak out. All right. So what are some resources? We ask for a lot. I know we do. And it can be very overwhelming, starting from scratch or even revising your apprenticeship program. But we have wonderful resources on your favorite website, www.apprenticeship.gov. My favorite tool, which I use, is the RA Academy. It even helps me out. Standards Builder, you will also find on apprenticeship.gov, and the Universal Outreach Tool, which I will give a demonstration for. What is the Universal Outreach Tool? The Universal Outreach Tool is just that. It helps you do, remember when I talked about a little bit about your affirmative action plan? This tool has helped to assist you to increase those numbers in diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility. And I will show you and give you a quick demonstration of what how the Universal Outreach Tool can be used. All right, we can open it up for Q&A.
I believe there was one question in the chat from Victor. So there's a question about altering the number of hours up to 25%, but you can never go lower than 2,000% or 2,000 hours. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yes, you cannot go lower than 2,000 hours.
Thank you so much for presenting this information, Nakeya. One of the things that you had mentioned to me that I thought was really important for our partners to know was that their ATRs are not notified when they start building a program in Standards Builder until it's completed, is my understanding, correct? So whenever they're starting in Standards Builder, they should reach out to their ATR. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes, thank you so much for that, Nate. So you would think when you put in an apprenticeship, a new request for a registered apprenticeship program, we, the ATR, does not get notified that there is a new program. Me and Deborah talked about this. She, I believe, may get notified, but it is just better if you reach out to your ATR and let them know, hey, just to let you know, I just put a program in Standards Builder, because it doesn't ding us. We don't get an email. We should be going into Standards Builder every day, but our workload is pretty heavy. So like I said before, we're only human. So just let us know when you have put in a new application for a registered apprenticeship program for Standards Builder. That would help us out tremendously. And thank you again, Nate, for that reminder. Any
Shannon
other
asked what the ATR stands for.
Apprenticeship and Training Representative. I apologize for that.
Yeah, there was a lot of acronyms, so
Yes, there is.
any other acronym questions from anyone?
I know, right? Okay, if that's it for questions, then I'm going to demonstrate a couple of things. So
one before you transition just came through. Is there ever is there ever a time when training hours can go below the minimum threshold, assuming that they've had maybe classes before or something like that?
Oh, you're talking about previous experience. So yes, you can, on the Appendix A, we cannot go any lower than the required 144 hours per year. So it's 144 hours per year. So if you have an apprenticeship program that is 2 years, 4,000 hours, the RTI hours has to be 288. If you have an apprentice who's coming in and had done half of the coursework, then once your program is registered and you have access to Rapids, you can then register that apprentice and then give them previous credit for that coursework. And you would upload those documents or keep them in a file in your office just to show proof of those classes. That was a great question. So yes, the paperwork cannot be less than 144 hours per year, but you can give them previous credit when you register them and when they start the program.
Right, and that's all the ones that have come through.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go through Appendix A. So here we have Appendix A. Star Trek USS Enterprise wants to start an apprenticeship program for their new Starfleet recruiters. Here with the Appendix A, you have the work process schedule and the related instruction outline. The logo is not a requirement. I just want it to be extra. But we do ask, and you'll see in the template, that we need the name of the organization, the address of that organization, and the occupation. So we talked about the ONET code, and I will demonstrate how you can find that ONET code on apprenticeship.gov. All of these are a requirement. The name of the occupation, the ONET code, and the Rapids code, which you will find on apprenticeship.gov. Or if you already have access to Rapids, you can also find this information in Rapids as well. At the very top, you will always see at each page where it says Appendix A, work process schedule, the name of the occupation, the ONET code, and the Rapids code. Here, remember that approach we talked about, term. We had the time-based, we had competency-based, and we had hybrid. Time-based means that they have to have a specific time, and we'll go through that once we go through the work process schedule, in a particular learning skill. Competency means that they can test out. Hybrid is both. Everybody learns differently, and some may need to just be able to test out and move on through the program, and some may to create motor skills and just do repeatedly on the job learning a specific skill. Here is the term of the apprenticeship program. It's 1 year. They do a demonstration of all of the 15 competencies or skills that are in the work process schedule. and they do the 144 hours of the related training. Here, Star Trek USS Enterprise is sticking to the one-to-one journey worker. Here is the wage schedule. They're starting off at $19 for their apprentice, and the end journey worker wage is going to be $30.84. Tisk tisk. USS Enterprise, I thought you would pay more than that. Here is the wage schedule broken down. They have the 6 months where they start off $19. 9 months, they're going to make $24.92. And towards the end of during the last 3 months, they're going to make $30.84, ending in their wage of $30.84. Their probationary period is 3 months. They chose the R selection process, which is very general, but like I said before, you can add. So here is their selection procedures. Every Appendix A has this general selection procedure in them. I take that back. This is extra right here. We do not have this section in ours. But like I said, it doesn't hurt to add more. Okay. This, I really like this portion that USS Enterprise put in. I showed this one because it makes you think about your affirmative action plan. Your affirmative makes it a lot easier when you reach that 4 or more apprentices. You want to add your recruitment area, your selection process, where you advertise, and who are your partners when looking for applicants. Okay. Here is where we get into their on-the-job learning. You don't necessarily have to put this block in because you have that information right here. But I do like this one because it shows the hours, which is 2,000 to 25 when you have a hybrid. When you have a hybrid, you'll see that there are 2 numbers, which means the least they can do for an apprenticeship program is 2025. They can't go any less than 2025. And it's okay. We put the max at 2475, and they got these numbers off of www.apprenticeship.gov when they looked up the work process schedule. That's where they got these hours from. Can an apprentice go past 2475? Yes, they can. Some apprentices need a little bit more time. That's okay. The thing that we're most concerned about is that we're not doing less than 2025. Here, you see where they have the basic safety that I talked about during my presentation at the very top. Here are those hours. So if this was a time-based occupation, the apprentice would have to stay at the 135. They would have to meet that minimum requirement of hours. If it was competency-based, then they can, before the 165, let's just say, they can test out. They can show their mentor journey worker that they are competent in that skill. And that is up to the sponsor and the employer. So here is the on-the-job learning. This is what they're learning on the floor with a a journey worker or mentor who is helping them master these skills to be an efficient energy auditor upon the USS Enterprise. And we got this. Now, when I talked about the 25%, let's just say that this work process schedule USS Enterprise took off a www.apprenticeship.gov and they just did a copy and paste. But USS Enterprise said they wanted to talk to one of the journey workers and are the mentors and wanted them to look at this work process schedule. And the mentor said, well, we really don't analyze risk related to investments in green technology. You know, Captain Kirk, that's not really our thing. We're not really worried about what's going on back on Earth. That's not our thing. So can the USS Enterprise take out this particular learning objective? Yes, they can. As long as the USS Enterprise isn't getting crazy and deleting half the learning skills and replacing it with another occupation. That's where that 25% comes in at. So you want to be mindful when you're working with an employer, or if you are an employer, how much of the work process schedule are you truly altering? Are you making or creating a whole new occupation? Keep that in mind. Okay, and then it should total up to the 2025 and the 2465. Common mistakes, like I said, adding these blocks. So make sure you're taking your time and adding up those hours correctly. Here, we have the related training. All templates have the related training instruction outline right here. You have to put in what the occupation title is, the ONET code, and the RAPIDS code. We asked for the training provider. Who is going to be the training provider? Here it's the Fleet Command in California. You're probably asking, how is that so? All classes are hybrid. They're logging in upon the USS Enterprise and they're taking classes virtually. Yes, you can do that. We like to know who are we contacting at the school. Here, we're going to be contacting Captain Kirk. We got his email, we got his phone number. And when is related training provided? Is it provided during work hours, not during work hours, or you want to be flexible? All of our templates have our requirement for harassment training, but most organizations have their own, but we do offer that. And it's also on www.apprenticeship.gov. Here is the training course. Here is their coursework. We want a detailed, well, we don't want a detailed description. You can describe the courses that they're going to take. That is fine. But we want a list of the classes that they are going to take and how long. So we want the hours as well. And what's at the top? Basic safety. Basic safety. So here's a breakdown of their learning, their coursework, what classes they're going to take, and how long. And it meets the minimum requirement of 144 hours. And that is Appendix A. I would like to open up any questions concerning Appendix A.
We had a couple of things come through the chat, and whoever entered these can also pipe in, unmute if you want to clarify anything. Kelly asked if an apprentice tests out of any of the competencies, still have, if an apprentice tests out of any of the competencies, do they still have to meet that minimum of 2,000 hours?
If they are competency based. So the minimum requirement, that's a great question. If the program states for 2,000 hours, so let me give you a little bit of background on where this 2,000 hours came from. So the 2,000 hours is saying from the Department of Labor, no matter what, even if that apprentice has tested their competency level, they met it, we ask that at a minimum, they do 2,000 hours no matter what. Because the Department of Labor feels you have to work underneath your mentor for at least 1 year. At least 1 year. Because there's so many things within the organization that that apprentice may not know. And to be successful in their job, we the Department of Labor has realized that an apprentice has much more success when they are with their mentor for 1 year. 2,000 hours on the job learning, no matter what. That was a great question.
Another one is, are the templates for tracking hours, or could a company use payroll instead?
So when I would have to meet with them, because when you say payroll instead, meaning can you use your own tracking system? Absolutely, you can. Absolutely. Some of my sponsors use WorkHands, or they have a very, very detailed Excel spreadsheet that they update monthly, where they track the on-the-job learning hours as well as the RTI hours.
Another one that came through is, could you go through the process again of how to find that work process schedule on apprenticeship.gov?
Yes, that was my next step. Yes.
Okay,
After
awesome.
I finish this Q&A for Appendix A, we're going to go on to apprenticeship.gov and look for this work process schedule.
Awesome. And then one last one from Stephanie.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier to list PPE in the Appendix A. Where would that go would it be on the work process schedule? And how do you handle that? And then how do you handle that for occupations that don't usually have PPE?
That's a special request that I would have to give to Deborah, and Deborah would have to make the call on what they would want to know why. So let's just say cybersecurity. That's always my favorite one because it's one of those non-traditional ones. I'm not going to say it's like common sense that you don't need PPE to be sitting at a computer doing cybersecurity, but we understand. I'm sure Deborah's going to say, okay, this particular job does not require PPE. So that would be something that me and the potential sponsor would have to talk about, so that I can go back to Deb and say, this particular Appendix A will not have PPE because of A, B, C, and D. And Deb will give the green light on whether or not that is okay. A little bit of background about the organization and the work that they do and what occupation it is. That was a great question. And I thought, hold on one second, guys. I thought PPE wording was in here. Excuse me. Yep, right here. So very simple. You just want to put it at the top with safety. All apprentices will be trained on proper PPE gear and how to properly wear the gear. Great question.
One more came through.
Yeah.
How do you incorporate ITA, OJT, and/or IWT with apprenticeship programs? Does that have to be done before? Sorry, some of these acronyms I'm not familiar with.
I don't know any of those acronyms. I don't know.
Victor, could you come off mute to ask your question?
So Victor, I believe, is asking about WIOA services and how to braid the funding into those programs.
Yes.
Oh,
hi, everyone.
Money.
Yeah, I'm from the workforce, we are 7, and I mean, we always heard that we can, do our business solutions along with apprenticeships. But I'm still, unclear, and where do we connect the dots on that?
Yeah,
so that's going to fall to your local policies, Victor. So if your rule is that IWT contracts have to be in place before RTI before the classroom training actually begins, then you would still follow that policy. If you have rules about wage reimbursements, you would follow those same policies on apprenticeships. You're not necessarily doing anything different. It's just you're utilizing those funds towards an employee who is in an additional program.
Got it. All right. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
No problem. And sorry for interrupting, Nakeya.
No, that was a great question. It really was, because I'm sure there were other people who were probably thinking the same thing.
All right. And we're all caught up.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Let's go to your favorite website. All right. Let me see here. I'm trying to, let's go here. Yep. That's what I thought. So y'all are in the way, of course. Hold on one second, guys. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. All right. Please excuse me.
And while Nakeya is pulling up apprenticeship.gov, our favorite website, I just want to remind everybody that, again, the role that the apprenticeship specialists on our grant throughout the state play is acting as a liaison between employers and their ATRs who are doing great work like Nakeya. So the employer never has to worry about any of this because our business service team folks know their apprenticeship stuff, and so they know all the acronyms, so the employer doesn't have to. So if any of this seems dense, remember that we have a framework in place for making sure that the employer doesn't have to worry about it.
Awesome. I love to hear that. Yes, teamwork makes the dream work. I love it. All right, guys, here we are. Just like Nate said, y'all favorite website, www.apprenticeship.gov. So to pull up that work process schedule, we want to go to the employers tab. We want to go to the employers tab. And then we want to go to occupation finder. So again, you want to go to www.apprenticeship.gov. You want to click on employers and then click on occupation finder. Occupation finder. One more time. Employers. Want to go underneath tools, occupation finder. Click occupation finder and scroll down. You can either browse by industry or search by occupation. I prefer getting straight to what I need to go to, which is search by occupation. Now, many of you will not know the ONET code or the RAPIDS code, so you really just want to put in the title of the occupation. So for mine, I typed in energy. And here you see, these are our options here on apprenticeship.gov. We have energy analyst, auditor, energy director, energy consultant, energy engineer. Remember how I said we had multiple ONET codes? This is what I was talking about. So you want to make sure that you have the right work process schedule. And if that means you may have to click on each one and view them in detail, I would suggest that. And here you have energy engineer, energy specialist, energy consultant, and energy specialist again. So I'm going to click on 474011.01. I'm going to search. And as you can see, this star means that we do have it as a registered occupation here at the Department of Labor. You also see where you say have the ONET title, energy auditors, the ONET code 474011.01. And here are some of the alternative occupations underneath this ONET code. Over here, you will find the work process schedule. The work process schedule. I chose energy auditor and analyst for the USS Enterprise. And here is where I got my RAPIDS code. So one more time. You want to go to employers, occupation finder. I like to search by occupation. Type in energy. Click on the closest title of that occupation that suits your business needs. Click search. It is indeed registered. If it wasn't, it would not have the star. It would not have the star. You want to click on the most suited occupation title, which is energy auditor and analyst for the USS Enterprise. And here the USS Enterprise wanted hybrid. And this is how we got our estimated 1 year. You want to download that work process schedule. You want to open it up. And here you are. This is your work process schedule. Here are the learning objectives. You have to put in the time as the navigator and the employer. You have to decide how long out of those 2,000 hours are going to be on this particular skill. Here are all the skill sets for my learning objectives for on-the-job learning for my energy auditor and analyst. That is in Appendix A. And as you can see, some of these were not in Appendix A. They didn't quite fit the USS Enterprise needs. that was not in there, and that is quite all right. We didn't alter it too much. Now here, you will have to get your own coursework. Your navigator will be happy to assist you, as well as your apprenticeship and training representative, who is your ATR, to help you choose the right structure, what courses they will take, and how long. All right. Any questions? Questions?
All right. Last call. Otherwise, we thank you so much, Nakeya, for being our guest speaker. Great
course.
presentation. You can always reach out to me or Nate or Jen if you have questions after this, and we can either answer them or get them to the people who can answer them. So again, thank you everyone for your time joining, and this will be posted later this week along with a slideshow on apprenticeshipillinois.com. So look for it there, and there should be an email reminding you of that later this week as well. With that, I'll hand it over to Nate or Nakeya for any last comments before we close.
No,
I was just
I just
gonna-
say thank you. Oh, go ahead, Nate. Go ahead.
No, don't worry. I was just going to say thank you to Nakeya for presenting. Remember, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Nakeya, even if she's not your ATR. I know she's happy to answer your questions.
Oh, yeah.
So feel free to reach out to her or myself with any follow-ups. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Have a great day,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.